Okay, here we go. Part 2. I'm Sherry.
Oh, I'm Elena.
What was that tone for?
Because usually you let me introduce myself first, but that's okay.
I'm not sure that really matters at this point because we're on part 2.
It does matter.
So you have to be first. Is this a typical younger sister deal? Am I missing this?
Well, anytime you get the opportunity, which you had been given to me, then yes.
Oh my gosh. Inflexible with introductions, let me say.
I just like routines.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so back to on that idea of routines on our case. There's nothing routine about this entire thing. I mean, you've got a young real estate agent, right? You've got meeting on an island to show $1 million property to a complete stranger who says that she got your number from a previous client, but no one can find any history of her calling to get Lindsay's number at the real estate office or anything of that nature. Now we have Lindsay has been killed. We've got this situation where Jason and his friend are the immediate suspects. They didn't shut the island down. High risk murder to be done on an island because you have to get the ferry back over to Vancouver. And, we're here, years later, and her murder still is not solved, but the FBI has now been helping them and with new technology, new crime investigation techniques, they do feel that they're getting closer to, it sounds like, the killers, plural. But we have a little bit of an issue with Lindsay's dad. The family is upset about their daughter's death, obviously. Everybody's going to be upset. And I'm sure for them, and I've heard this from different families of crime, especially murder victims, they wonder, are they going to come after us? Does it have something to do with the family? I've heard that several times. And especially little kids, they grow up fearing that they're going to show up and get them.
Yeah.
I can understand that response because that's a child's response. I can even be a little bit nervous as an adult. And you just, to me, if you're, a loved one was murdered, you're going to view anyone as a suspect. Even strangers on the street, you're going to wonder, did they kill my daughter or did they kill my son or, spouse, whatever. But the dad went on the freaking deep end, okay? He had some concerns and questions and statements, and I'm going to read this directly. I believe it is from the transcripts of Murder on an Island podcast. Buziak's father, who had lived in Calgary, Alberta at the time of the murder, had his suspicions about Zalo. Buziak's father said the following, quote, "There's certain things I don't buy here. For me personally, one, I would have gone and checked as soon as I saw somebody dart in and out the front door. That concerns me. The other thing that's odd to me is supposedly Jason had never been in the house. Why would he push the front door open, run up the stairwell right in the master bedroom without stopping?" Okay.
The stair's not there.
Exactly. All you have to do is look at the photos, which I'm sure he has, and you can see the staircase right from the front door, and that as you go up, you will see her slumped. Also,
not only that, but sorry. Do what?
Well, he also did immediately. When he saw the man darting, he did immediately try to get in, and he couldn't.
Not only that, is his dad is also like us, outside looking in. Jason and his friend were in the moment.
Yes.
They did the best.
I think it would, if I was a parent, I would probably be suspicious of the boyfriend or the girlfriend.
Sure.
But if the police are giving you evidence as to why they couldn't have done it, now they're going to go, yeah, but they might have hired it done. Okay, well, we can't, there's no money trail. There's nothing tying these people to the murder. And I can understand where people are like, well, police have gotten it wrong before. Absolutely. But guys, this obsession is actually, it's torment, number one. And number two, it's not helping. you've got to think of the jury pool.
It reminds me of the John Bonet case in that regard.
That is so ridiculous. Do you know that I learned the other day there's actually 2 forms of DNA from her panties? There's the balloons.
Oh, I didn't like when they came up, but 2 forms.
Okay. So if you do your 2 fingers up in Zoom now, you get balloons. If you do both your fingers, you get confetti. Guys, I have no idea what the hell is happening with my Zoom, but I just know that, big sister, I guess, privileges. Maybe you shouldn't have griped about not being first. Now you don't get balloons.
I have a sister. I'll figure it out, and mine will be better.
Whatever. So Jeff Buziak, the dad, spoke out about how his daughter had confided in him about her relationship with Zalo. She had traveled to Calgary just 6 weeks before the murder. He said the following, quote, "She just felt Jason was overbearing and demanding and, jealous, possessive. She came out to Calgary to speak to me about that." The problem with those statements is it's all a lie. That never happened. We'll get into more of that. Sergeant Horsley spoke out about Zalo and the suspicions that some people held about him being a potential suspect. Quote, "Based on forensic evidence, timeline of communications, witness testimony, video surveillance, we know that Zalo's not the killer. Was he perhaps somehow involved in the planning? Well, he successfully passed a polygraph test and he successfully took part in all these interviews with us. So at this point in time, he's not considered a suspect. It certainly has the hallmarks of being pre-planned and pre-orchestrated without a doubt." So they're saying, okay, we can't tie him. He's not a suspect, but if any new information comes up where he may have been involved with the murder or the planning, of course they're going to get him, for that. But at this point, there's just nothing that ties him to the murder. A whistleblower was interviewed on that podcast, Murder on the Island. She was an admin on the website lindsaybuziakmurder.com. And let me see if it's still live.
She's a whistleblower?
Yeah, she's a whistleblower, and she was a former admin on the website. Yeah, it's still up. I mean, if you want to go and look, but let me tell you, there it's going to just be lies. She said that she first started helping. Oh, let me just show you the website. She first started helping him because she felt bad for him because, his daughter had been murdered and she wanted to help in some way. And since she didn't have a father, she admired him and his love for his daughter and how, much he cared and all the work he was doing to try to solve, Lindsay's murder. So she missed the signs. She said that
real quick,
oh yeah, go ahead.
On that website, there was a bunch of links to podcasts, and it sounded like really good, information available.
But it's not. 90% of what is on that site is gossip. And when he was confronted, so this whistleblower confronted him about the fact that he was lying about people. He was lying about events. For example, that Lindsay said that she wanted to get out of the relationship with Jason. That when she confronted him, he didn't care. He also had his bloggers post under pseudonyms and even put others' criminal records on the blog, which is illegal.
So he zeroed in on Jason, convinced it was Jason, possibly the family, and that was it in his mind. He was going to get a conviction.
That was it. In a 2012, and this is an example of the nonsense he did. In a 2012 blog post, Jeff said that he had just discovered a letter Lindsay left him that named people and described things that were going on prior to her death. Quote, "She explains what she saw that she shouldn't have," he wrote. Though no letter has ever publicly surfaced, Jeff has continued to claim that Lindsay, quote, saw something, and presented different theories and explanations about what that could be. More recently, Jeff has said that it was during a trip to see him in Calgary in December 2007 that Lindsay told him or gave him the impression that she, quote, saw something she shouldn't have, but said that Lindsay wouldn't tell him what it was. Right Mayor, which I believe was the whistleblower, told Capital Daily Lindsay never mentioned, oh no, that actually might have been her mom, never mentioned seeing anything to her. Quote, I've talked to a lot of her girlfriends. Nobody ever said anything like that. Reitmeyer also said that she contacted the police after learning that her ex-husband, so this is Lindsay's mother, apparently discovered the letter, which Jeff said he had turned over to the authorities. The police said, we've never received the letter. Capital Daily, the publishers of Murder on an Island, reached out to Jeff to ask him a series of specific questions regarding the letter and many other issues reported in this article, some of which were based on emails provided by Capital Daily to one of Jeff's former website administrators. Jeff didn't respond directly to any of the questions, but said he had, quote, no other agenda other than ensuring those responsible for Lindsay's murder are, quote, imprisoned for this heinous act. Jeff also asserted that Daily Capital did not have permission to quote or publish the emails and that doing so would violate his privacy and acts. Anyone sharing this type of private information or using it publicly will be discussed publicly by name and address if applicable. Address. That's called doxing.
Right.
What emails is he referring to? Capital Daily was able to get the emails that prove that he was lying on his blog and that he knew it, and that the admins knew it, and that those that were writing the blog posts knew it, that he was lying about pretty much everything. Okay. Emails sent from personal email accounts are often the basis of news stories, including cases where the sender does not want the contents of those emails published or disclosed. In this case, the emails obtained by Capital Daily reveal the inner workings of Lindsay Buziak Murder.com, contain a detailed record of correspondence between Jeff and others, and offers insight into some of the best-known true crime claims surrounding Lindsay's murder. In an email from 2013, Jeff seemed to acknowledge the letter he claimed Lindsay had left him was fake. Quote, that faux letter is certainly bothering some, isn't it? He wrote to one of his website administrators. I don't know where the next quote I'm going to read came from. I think it's going to be in the show notes where I have all the links to my information. But I've got here Lindsay. Hang on. Okay. Her mom said that Lindsay was such a happy little thing. She was smart. She was full of joy. She was social, but she had a timid side and would cling to her mother when she was little. She was fashion conscious from a young age, and she once asked her mom for some grape bubble gum because it matched her dress. Her mom told her that she would buy her what she needed but not wanted, so Lindsay got her first job as a young teen at a clothing store. And then the family spent summers on a lake, and they did RV a lot and things like that, and then Lindsay was just a really good kid. Now, in the mid-1990s, the marriage came undone. After the split, Reitmeyer, who is the mom, was awarded primary custody of their daughters. In the early 2000s, Jeff moved to Calgary. Okay, so Lindsay obviously didn't grow up in Calgary, where he's lived ever since and now works as a commercial real estate agent. When she was 18, Lindsay started dating Matt McDuff. McDuff said on Dateline that he and Lindsay had a, quote, stormy relationship, though he denied ever being physically violent toward her. When Capital Daily reached McDuff by phone in 2021, he declined to speak at length, saying he didn't want his daughters reading about a prior girlfriend. Capital Daily followed up with him more recently. He said he was traveling and unable to speak for the next few months. So this must be Capital Daily's website. McDuff was in another relationship at the time of Lindsay's murder and denied having anything to do with her death in his interview with Dateline. Lindsay's relationship with McDuff ended around the middle of 2006. According to Dateline, they had no contact for months before the murder. At some point, Lindsay became focused on a career in real estate. She enrolled, here we're going to find out when she became a realtor. She enrolled in the UBC Sauder School of Business Real Estate Trading Services program and got help with math from Helen Jones, a real estate tutor in Victoria. At Jones' workshop in 2005, she ran into Jason, who she knew from around the city and who'd previously played competitive hockey. Lindsay passed her real estate exam in June 2006, becoming one of 20 real estate agents in Greater Victoria who were estimated to be under the age of 25, according to the colonists. So how was she? So she was 28 at the time of her murder. So she had been in real estate at least 2 years, maybe more. For the next year and a half, Lindsay worked for a real estate company called Maverick, which marketed townhouses in the West Shore. Lindsay and Jason's paths crossed again around the same time that Lindsay became licensed. By then, Lindsay and McDuff were calling it quits, and according to Lindsay's friend Vicky Mackey, Lindsay was impressed with Jason. She really looked up to the fact that Jason was in the real estate industry and his mom was too. It seemed like she was happy with his mom and excited to be part of their circle. Lindsay's mom said that Lindsay specifically advertised Jason was not a drug user, and that was a big deal to her. Now, this has come up as dispute or as a huge, the father putting a bunch of stuff in this aspect. So remember, Jason's name is Shirley, and she's an agent. She had the listing of the house that Lindsay showed the couple.
One second. So she began talking to Jason, and then McDuff and her relationship ended. Is that right?
Yeah. And then it sounds like they ran into each other later and started dating.
Okay.
In early 2007, Shirley purchased a home on Shawnigan Lake, and she told Capital Daily that the home was purchased after the deaths of both of her parents, and she bought the property like as a vacation property for family and friends. So in her interview, it sounds like, if you wanted to go and stay at the house for a while and you're a friend or you're a family member, go ahead. Shirley did not have to be there. She would let people go and enjoy the property. Lindsay and Jason spent the summer in the basement suite at the lake house, and then they had free run of the upstairs when no one else was there.
Oh, kind.
Yeah. Jeff has long said that Shirley purchased the home for the young couple to move into, a claim that for some seemed to suggest that Lindsay was being enticed away from her family. But Shirley, her mom, and Sarah Buziak all dispute the claim. The house was not purchased for Jason and Lindsay. It was a family home. It was never bought for them.
It's obvious.
Yeah, but that's where, people are like, well, she couldn't get rid of Lindsay. She couldn't get her out of Jason's life, so she had her killed. It's BS. None of that is in any of the evidence. Eventually, so she worked for the one real estate office. She joins RE/MAX, and that was the same brokerage that employed Shirley, Jason, and then Ryan Zalo. So that's the brother of Jason.
Okay.
She and Jason moved into a one-bedroom condo in the Inner Harbor that was owned by the Zalo family. And that may be where the confusion could be too, but I don't think her dad's confused about anything. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. Like you said, he thinks that Jason did it, and he's going to do whatever he has to get him behind bars. And he also thinks the mom was involved.
Yeah. After
starting at RE/MAX, Lindsay was involved in 8 property transactions that grossed a total of $3.2 million, which is not bad, actually.
Ooh.
On December 15th, 2007, Lindsay visited her father in Calgary. So she did go to see him. And some say that she told him that Jason didn't seem to have the same ambition as her. She also supposedly told other friends, including Vicky Mackey, that she wasn't happy and was considering breaking it off. And Jason didn't dispute that they, had arguments and, just normal couple things. But he said as far as he was aware, their relationship wasn't ending. He told Capital Daily, "We never talked about breaking up." And then Sarah, I think that's the sister, described the relationship positively, saying the couple seemed happy. and that Jason treated her well. Now, of course, that is, a family member of his, so they're probably going to be a little bit biased, but I couldn't find any evidence other than hearsay of relationship problems.
So who had said that? The dad, and were there other people?
The dad and then her friend Vicky Mackey.
Okay.
But I couldn't confirm that. And so I don't know if that's true or if that's dad making up other stuff.
Yeah.
After Lindsay returned to BC from her trip to Calgary, she, Jason, and members of his family took a trip to Whistler, and her mom told Capital Daily that Lindsay and Jacob's relationship seemed to be improving heading into 2008. She said, "We had such fun. This was a perfect thing. We needed to spend more time together." So that does tell me that maybe she was having some doubts.
Sure.
That confirms.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The whistleblower has hundreds of emails that prove Jeff lied about Shirley and her family.
Oh.
One instance is saying that Shirley, like I said, gave Jason and Lindsay that lake house. It's not true. He also posted a confession post and named the guy who denied that he confessed it. So he basically puts up this confession post by the name of an individual, and the guy's like, "I did not write that. I did not confess to anything." I mean, the guy's insane. He also lied and said that Lindsay told him she saw something that she shouldn't have, and that's not true either.
Are there not any sort of laws that he's breaking that he can be held accountable for?
We're going to get into that, but it appears that it's quite difficult because they had to prove he was saying it. So remember, what he was doing is he was having others under fake names write these blog posts. From what I remember of the interview, and anyone that listens to it, feel free to write in if I have it wrong. But what I remember from the interview is Shirley said it took a really long time to get evidence that he was behind the attacks. And she did, and they might even still be in the court proceedings to this day. But she said technology wasn't where it needed to be, where they could trace it back to him or back to his cronies. And she did do a lawsuit. But, I mean, if you think about it, they're cops, right? They've got murders to investigate. They got robberies to investigate. They're not going to investigate slander. They're not going to investigate libel. It was up to Shirley and her family to get the evidence and enough evidence so they could finally get Jeff and his cronies into court. And the whistleblower became very important.
Good.
And it was also sad because his attacks almost ruined Shirley. She was interviewed on Capital Daily, and she was still broken up about it. I mean, she said that her real estate business almost ended. If she had any signs out on properties that she had listed, people would deface her signs. She and her boys both lost leads for houses. That's her livelihood. She finally had to move to the lake house for a while just so she could regroup. And it sounded like she was like not wanting to live. I mean, from the way she was talking, she just didn't want to exist. What I do admire about the whistleblower is she called Shirley and she apologized. Because once she figured out that he was lying, she felt horrible. And to this day, she said that she feels absolutely horrible. And so she did call and she did apologize. She and another admin that had helped out Jeff created a rival blog to counter Jeff, but later they took it down because he just went after them.
So why is that other blog still up?
I have no idea. And it gets worse. And this is where I get angry.
Okay.
True crime podcasts should, to me, never work with a victim's family to accuse another person. And so what happened is Jeff collaborated with the podcast Cold Case. Cold Case shared 3 scripts with Jeff before airing them. They also presented some of Jeff's accusations as fact. Eventually, Cold Case realized he was a liar, and they even confronted him in person. But I'm sorry, your responsibility as a podcaster, and I can understand where they're coming from. This is the victim's dad. We're going to get some, firsthand knowledge from him, right? And no one knew how much he was lying. They were just taking this information as it came. The problem, though, is you got to verify. You can't just take one person's word. Did they ask the mom? Did they talk to the mom? Did they find out he was lying? The police have said over and over they had nothing to do with it. So basically, he was collaborating, and there were even points where he'd be like, that's not true. You need to rewrite that. Like he was editing these scripts. And so when they went to him in person to confront him, he was basically like, whatever. So they have since realized their, bad choices. But the reason it upset me is it's one thing to not have all your facts. Like every once in a while, like for example, I know that the Ted Bundy case very well. I have been studying that since I was 16. So we've got 34 years of reading about Ted Bundy, watching shows about Ted Bundy, researching Ted Bundy. Even to this day, I'll learn things about him that I had no idea. And so when I hear someone, they have the name of one of the victims wrong and how she was killed, or they have a fact about Ted Bundy that I have, been able to prove was not accurate, I'm like, guys, you need to do some more research. But this wasn't that. This was collaborating with a victim's family member. We had a situation where a lady contacted us, and unfortunately, she never followed up. I even tried to schedule a time with her, and I was very leery of the case. It was a case that intrigued me that her parents were murdered, or she believes they were murdered. She believes she knows who murdered them, and she had pictures and some other compelling evidence. What I told her is, I'm happy to interview you, and I'm happy to put it on a podcast to see if we can gain traction, but I will not allow you to accuse anybody by name or any other way, and we can just discuss the things you discovered and what you think happened, but minus accusing anyone. And I never heard from her again.
Oh.
That needs to be a policy. If you have a true crime podcast, first of all, you're not dealing with objects. You're dealing with real people, a woman who didn't want to live because the dad of a victim would not leave her and her family alone and almost ruined her life. And I'm sure there's still suspicion, I know there is for a fact on the internet, but in her community where they still believe that she and her family had something to do with Lindsay's murder.
Yeah.
So it's really sad. So I want to go into my thoughts and then insights, and we'll finish up. Like I said, I was wondering if maybe there was like a jealous, she had a 3.2 portfolio under her belt. That's actually pretty significant.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe there was a jealous real estate agent somewhere, or maybe a Bonnie and Clyde. They're like, hey, let's, do this type of murder. And they'd go into this elaborate planning. She didn't recognize them. We know that. And so it makes me wonder also, were they a one-off? So you might have, where they're like, hey, let's do a murder. You get two people together, they go on crime sprees, and then they're like, man, that was too messy, or that was too much, blah, blah. And so they never did it again. Maybe they were hired by someone, which I'm kind of wondering if that was the case. All I know is it was well planned. Lindsay was the target. They had their scouting and their escape route, and they accomplished it. And so far, it's been a perfect crime. But I think there will be a break in the case, according to police.
Yeah, I agree.
So any thoughts, like anything that you could think of, like why she would be targeted?
And her stating that she saw something a year before,
The
around the
dad,
time the phone was bought, was only from the dad.
yeah, it was fake.
Now, flip side of that is often there is some truth. It's not 100% lies.
That's true.
So maybe there is some truth, and that's why he's so hard set on Jason. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know as far as his perspective. I couldn't find any more information, but I did run across reports that in Lindsay's Facebook page, there were some deleted messages that were concerning. But I don't know if the phrase or the word concerning is referring to the content, if it's referring to the person who was messaging her. The police are very tight-lipped about it, but there are some indications. There were some Facebook posts or messages in Messenger that were, suspect.
Okay.
I don't know. It is the weirdest case. It's one of those that if you, like the Zodiac, if you get into it, you're just like, you could keep going and going. Like I had to make myself stop. And
Yeah.
because it's like, who would want this 28-year-old who is popular and caring dead? If not those closest to her, right? Like, who would put a hit on a lady that is young and a real estate agent that doesn't do drugs, doesn't like people around her to do drugs, that has nothing to do with drugs? They did investigate if Jason and her were involved with, they're not involved with drugs. And it's like, it just is like it's a low risk victim and it's a high risk targeted hit. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. That's all I got.
Okay. So let me give some insights for people for safety. And then we'll end this, these 2 episodes, and then anything that you want to add. Number 1, the urgency and the immediate need to purchase $1 million property is a huge flag, especially calling Lindsay, who is a relatively new real estate agent. In real estate, everybody's in a hurry, but typically, and this is again from working with a real estate agent, people that are looking for that level of property are not. They're picky. They will discount a property if the faucet is not what they want. I mean, they look at everything. They're actually sometimes hard to deal with.
Right.
And so the urgency and the price tag are the red flag. If you had like say a $70,000 house or even $150,000, $200,000 house, I could see if there was some urgency. We all know those people that, maybe they're renting and the house sold, or they're in a divorce and they need a place to live quick. I mean, all of those things, I could see an urgency, but not $1 million property.
No.
Okay, so that, number 1, is a red flag because there's a lot of planning and work involved in showing those properties as well.
And I have to say, my first thought when Lindsay said that she was Mexican or had an accent to the like and $1 million, my first thought was not necessarily cartel, but just something shady, something fishy, and maybe that's profiling.
Well, most cartels are, they are from those areas of the world that, Central South America, we just know that for a fact. I would say the scenario that most fits for me is the drug cartel angle because the drug bust that did occur, the reason the police, and I was not able to verify this, so please don't take my word on this, but in some of the reports, because I got really nervous putting anything out there because of the dad, in some of the reports, they looked at Lindsay and Jason in that drug bust because they were on the phone to one of the persons that was involved in that whole thing. And again, even if she wasn't an informant, if the cartel thought she was, I could see they would want to get rid of her. But why not Jason too?
Right. And again, a year before the phone was bought. I don't know that cartel worked that
It
way. I mean,
wasn't
I
a
don't know.
year. It wasn't a year. It was the November before. The murder was in February,
When was the drug bust?
right before she was killed in January.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If it was a year before, they wouldn't take that long. But again, you have this whole elaborate scenario. Drug
Yeah.
cartels don't do this. They don't do that. They just take you out in your car or they show up at your house and kill you there. I mean, I've never heard of a drug cartel going to a high risk island that you can only get to with a ferry. Two people are involved and kill her in a cul-de-sac with neighbors. It's just so high risk.
But then again, you have different generations of cartel. You have high end, low end.
I don't know because cartels send a message. If they kill you, they want everybody to know snitches get dead.
I thought you were going to say the other thing.
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
Number 2, once the lady stated the former client with the name, she gave her the name, suggested that she call Lindsay, I'd immediately call that former client to verify. And if she couldn't remember the name of the former client that referred her to Lindsay, I would have turned them down. It's too suspicious.
Absolutely. Did she give her the name?
I don't know.
Mm.
I'm assuming she did because Lindsay would want to know. I mean, if you just say former client, well, which one? That way I can thank them.
Well, and I mean, I don't know, you would know more about this as far as the social media aspect, but there's a lot of advertising for realtors. And so I'm wondering, do they put, happy homeowners, this one just sold, that sort of thing. So she could have got her name from there if that were true.
And if it's 2008, Facebook's definitely used quite a bit, but I don't know if it's used as much as it is now. But she did say a former client referred them. And like you said, she could have gotten the name from her Facebook post if she put it on there because they definitely do that today. I just don't know if they did in 2008. When I first started working with the realtor I work with in 2012, using social media was just becoming the thing. And It took quite a few years to develop those practices with agents because, quite frankly, most of the agents, at least here, are older and they hate technology. And there was a huge learning curve to get them to use social media.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, some reports state that the caller pointed out the property they wanted to see. Others say that Lindsay found it. I believe she found it based on their criteria. But if it was the former, I would be very suspicious. Why would you not call the listing agent? So whenever a house is for sale, the realtor that holds the listing has their sign with their name and their number on it to call. Lindsay was not the listing agent of this property. Her boyfriend's mom was. Normally, when people call to see a house, they call the listing agent. And they may already have their own realtor to help them in the buying process, but you don't call. Like, that'd be so weird. Like, if someone was to want to hire my social media management services, right? Why would they call you?
Right.
That's the thing that's really weird. They don't call Shirley. They call Lindsay, who does not have the property listed. And again, if they wanted to work with a different realtor, they can still hire their realtor and still call the listing agent. And you for sure wouldn't want a newbie. I think her gut was telling her something was wrong and that it didn't make sense, but she didn't listen to it enough.
Now, do you think that maybe she assumed, I don't know how any of this works. Did she assume that she was just being hired as their realtor?
That still wouldn't work. And it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like they wanted to see, well, Maybe so, actually, because if you want to see properties, you're going to call a realtor to show you those properties. So I guess that would work. I guess I could see that. So, but again, I think the newbie aspect, it just was very suspicious. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. She did think it was weird, and so don't ignore weird, you know?
Right.
Court documents reveal that Lindsay did ask 2 receptionists at Remax to search the caller's name and number in the company database, but they didn't find any information. She's alarmed enough to research.
Well, 2 people. 2, not just one, and not just a flippant request.
Yep. So
they didn't find anything.
I don't know if she thought she was going to be murdered. We're having a rough time trying to figure out why she was murdered. I mean, again, she's a low risk victim. She probably couldn't think of, like, if she thought it was weird, maybe she thought they were just con artists. They're going to try to rob her, or they were going to try to, get in a deal and then, take off with, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. Like, maybe she just couldn't think of any reason why she should be in danger. That's the only thing I can think of, because it would be weird. It'd be like, but again, you just never know, and you need to trust your gut. But if I was her, I wouldn't be able to figure out why they would want her, but I don't know if I'd necessarily think there would be criminal activity involved.
And again, I know that we've stressed this so many times, but everyone's gut talks to them. Truly, go with your gut, go with your first instinct.
Yep. The science behind it is huge.
Oh, yeah.
The emotional center, you got your heart and you got your gut. And that's more powerful than your brain. Your brain will try to reason away what your gut and heart's telling you.
Yep.
So this takes me to number 5, especially with today's technology. Google and search in Facebook for the person who contacted you. 100%. I do this for anybody we hire. We look at their Facebook. If you can't find them, or you suspect they borrowed someone's name, do not go to that meeting.
Yep.
And just tell them you're not interested. And so now these people were determined to kill her. So I don't know if they would have found her later, but if she would have done a search and she didn't find them, I probably pretty much would have canceled the whole thing, or at least taken someone with me. It appears that there were numerous calls from the woman that Jason took when Lindsay was running errands, etc. He did confirm the Spanish accent, and he said that Lindsay seemed to be more inquisitive than scared. If you are in a relationship with a person like Jason was with Lindsay, I would probably have to insist to be there. Because in this situation, it could have been Lindsay is new to real estate, and they don't have to know he is too. And she's not used to such high-end property, so I'm here to assist. You know what I mean? Like, if they would have seen this huge 240-pound dude show up with Lindsay, they would not have killed her. Well, they might have tried to kill both of them, but I think it might have deterred them a little bit. And so if you're a real estate agent, I understand you don't want to look like, you're being babysat or someone has to hold your hand, but there's ways to phrase things that people don't know, and they're not going to care that someone is there with you. And I understand they could be like, well, if she's that new and can't be here by herself, then I don't want to do business with her. No deal is worth you being in danger. It just does not matter. And I really wish that she would have let someone go with her and be there at that time. I understand he was going to sit in his car, but let's say that Jason got there, he sat in his car. I don't know if that would have deterred him. He saw the man, so, I just don't know if that would have stopped them from killing her inside the house.
Now, he saw the man, and I only saw a sketch of the woman. Why is there not a sketch of the man he saw?
Maybe he didn't see enough of his face for him to be able to have a sketch. It might have been too quick.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. The property was so new that it didn't show up on the GPS. I recommend in cases like that that you text the directions to the property, both to the one that's coming, or if just you insist on showing the property, to someone that knows how to get to you quick. And then if they suspect any danger, they can immediately get on 911 and give them the directions. That's really important.
And share your location at least with, if nothing else, the person you trust the most.
Yeah. And I would say, don't, like, if it's something that, okay, this sounds too good to be true, and you end up on the property, don't turn your back. Don't turn your back on them. Just let them look around at the house, and you stay by the door, and you leave the keys in the lockbox. The final few things here, have a code word. So for me and the realtor that I work with,
Yep.
It's bring me the red folder. It's fine. I've already discussed it with her. So if I get that, I immediately know to call 911. And there's only been one time that I've been working with her for 11 years where she called me before the appointment and she explained, okay, it's two gentlemen that want to see this property. It's out in the country and I'm nervous about it. And I said, okay, do you want me to be there? And you can just say I'm your assistant. And she said no, but because she kind of knew one of them. But she said, I'm going to give you the address and then just be on the alert. Have your phone. And I said, absolutely. And so I had right next, I wasn't going to put that phone anywhere because I knew if I got bring me the red folder, I needed to call 911. I would have preferred her not to go alone, and it did turn out okay, but that's just something that you can do for extra measures.
When the kids were little, very little in elementary, we always had a code word, and they still know what that code word is.
Yep.
Like it doesn't expire.
Yeah.
Also, Jade used it one time where I'll tell you offline, it was hilarious. Like, of course, Jade. It's like, this is not the time you use the code word.
That's funny. Again, put the key in the lockbox before going in. If you, and this is a final, if you are the loved one of the realtor and something makes you nervous, ask a lot of questions. Insist that you are at least close to the vicinity.
Yeah.
And don't regret not doing that like Jason does. So I just, again, felt like there were really good safety tips in this case. Plus, the case is probably one of the most intriguing in a bad way that I've ever researched. Again, it's not solved. We normally don't do that, but it is just the weirdest. That and the little girl Aisha that went missing. I want to do that someday. It's just the weirdest thing. But hopefully we've given some good safety tips. Can you think of any others that you would like to add?
Yeah. So
okay, goodbye. Be smart, be rude, don't be a victim.
I almost called you a jackarse.
Where's my confetti? Oh, there it is. Okay, go ahead. Did I distract you? Did you forget or do you remember?
No, I remember. So if you're a family member or a friend and you have a gut feeling or you use the word weird or something's not right, keep talking to the person, keep asking questions, and you do what you feel is right. Don't go, crazy. But I would rather, honestly, I'd probably rather overstep than take a chance of my friend or family member being harmed in any way.
I agree. At the very least, let's say you're that individual, you could be in the car. So, let's say, for example, Jason could have ridden over there with her, and there's nothing wrong. You're not going to look any less professional than if you say, we have a party to go to right after this, And to save time so we're not late, my boyfriend is in the car. You know, and I don't know if it would have saved her life, but it might have.
I like the assistant idea.
It is rare for real estate agents to have assistants following along. I think you can maybe get away with it in a high-end property. But this case, I would insist now. Like if my real estate client was worried, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just not comfortable. Let me just be in the vehicle,
Yep.
and of course I carry. So, and she does too. So anybody that tries to mess with her might need to think twice. But I think I would after this case.
Good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you can think of or any other safety suggestions?
No, be smart, be rude, don't be a victim.
Ridiculous. Children, you're acting like a child.
You said it first.
That definitely sounds like a child. Wow. And copying. All right. So you're copying me being a child. You did it first. Most children say that when they're fussing with their sibling.
Anyway.
All right. So you want to try to get the balloons up one more time?
Mine didn't work.
Oh, it didn't? Oh, it worked. Dang it. I was going to.
Oh.
And then confetti. Oh, man. Too cool, guys. Too cool. All right. Until next time. Hopefully we'll have Mom join us. Outline of a Murder is a Mr. Joseph production. What do you think, Joseph?